Hi friends and future me, starting an LLC might seem like a smart move, but get this wrong and you could end up overpaying taxes, losing your personal protection, or getting fined for just skipping one step. Today, I'm going to show you what an LLC actually is, how it works, and when you should or shouldn't start one. I'm not a lawyer or a CPA, but I've built a creative consultancy and an e-commerce business, and I've spent time learning from entrepreneurs who have done this right and wrong. In this video, you'll learn what an LLC is, how it's taxed, how to pay yourself, and how to start one without wasting money, as well as the mistakes to avoid. So first, what is an LLC? An LLC is a limited liability company. It's a legal structure that separates you from your business. It gives your business its own identity and protects your personal stuff, like your home, your savings, and your car. If your business ever gets into legal or financial trouble, you are protected. An LLC is its own legal entity or a legal person. It can own things, it can sign contracts, and it can even get sued. But if you've done everything correctly, you won't be held personally liable. However, this protection is not automatic. If you don't follow the rules, like keeping your business and your personal finance separate, the court can pierce the corporate veil, meaning that they can ignore your LLC and hold you personally responsible. That's the problem with sole proprietorships. With those and your business are the same legal entity, so there's no protection and no separation. Now, even if you've started an LLC, there's one mistake that could ruin all your protection, and most new business owners don't even know that they're doing it. It's called piercing the corporate veil. So let me explain what that means and how do you actually avoid it. Basically, the corporate veil is the legal protection that separates you, the owner, from your business. But if you treat your business, your LLC, like a personal piggy bank, you mix your business and your personal finances, or you skip making the required filings, the court can decide that your LLC isn't legitimate. So here's a real-life example. In Iowa, a contractor had a $410,000 judgment against his business, but because he used one bank account for everything, he skipped the proper records and blurred the lines between himself and the company. So the court pierced the corporate veil. He ended up being personally liable for the entire amount. To stay protected, show that your LLC is a separate entity, not just an extension of yourself. So some of the tips to follow: keep a separate business bank account. Never pay your personal expenses from your business account. Stay up to date with your state's filings and fees. Lastly, maintain clear records and contracts in your business name. So what are LLCs used for? LLCs are used to run businesses while protecting your personal assets. Whether you're running a side hustle or building something larger, an LLC helps to keep your personal and business finances clearly separated. For example, let's say you sell handmade products online. If a customer sues you, they won't be suing you personally, they will actually be suing your company because the product is being owned by the LLC and not by you. So the legal claims are made against the business as a separate entity and not you as the owner. This structure gives you the flexibility in how you're being taxed, as well as a legal separation from your personal assets. Now, where do you get an LLC and how do you start one? You can either do it yourself by going through your state's business portal, or you can use a service like LegalZoom or Zen Business. So the advantage of doing it yourself is that it's cheaper and you have more control. The downsides of doing it yourself is that it's also very time consuming and it can also be very confusing for first timers. Now, the advantage of having a service to help you register your LLC is that it could potentially save you time and it takes care of a lot of the paperwork. The disadvantage, however, is that it tends to cost more and it can sometimes be slow, or they may try to upsell you some services. From my experience, I once used a service that had a 4.3 star Google rating and was cheaper than its competitors, but their replies were very slow, often taking days to respond or to follow up. I got so frustrated that I ended up filing half the paperwork myself. I shared this full story in my video about buying back my time, which I link it up here. So here are some tips to choose a proper provider if you choose to go through that route. The first is always to check the reviews on Google, Trustpilot, and Reddit. So if you cannot find sufficient reviews on multiple sources, it's usually better to avoid them. Also, if you find that they are suspiciously cheap compared to their competitors, then that's usually a red flag as well. Now, the next step to do before you register your LLC is to choose a business name. You need to find a name that is not trademarked or already registered by somebody else. Generally, it needs to be available as a domain and also as a social handle, because in today's modern world, you need to use a lot of social media to do publicity for your company, and having another social media brand that has already taken this business name could potentially put you at a huge disadvantage. For myself, I personally picked a name that was based on a mythical creature, only to discover that it was actually trademarked by a country's tourism board, and that actually slowed down my entire process and took a long time to rectify it. So now that you have your LLC set up, how do you actually pay yourself? A lot of people get this wrong. Let me show you how it works and how the rules change depending on how your LLC is taxed. To pay yourself, if you're a single member LLC in the US, you just take an owner's draw. Basically, what you need to do is just to transfer the money from your business to your personal account, and that amount will then be taxed later on. If your LLC is taxed as an S-corp, you may pay yourself a reasonable salary through payroll, and the rest can then be taken as distributions, which may not be subject to self-employment tax. Outside the US, however, the rules tend to vary. In countries like Canada, Australia, and Singapore, owners can receive a salary without needing an S-corp status. So therefore, I will always highly recommend that you need to check with your local laws first. Now, starting an LLC is one thing, but how do you actually get your money into the LLC? So let me show you the right and the wrong ways to fund your LLC. You can fund your LLC by member contributions. That is, you use your own money in exchange for equity. So this is often called bootstrapping as well. Alternatively, you can also lend money to your business in the form of a loan, which can be interest or interest-free. So when you do this approach, however, you need to ensure that the proper transfer is done. You leave comments in the transfer that this is actually a loan and it's not like a personal transfer. You also need to inform your accountant about it so that it's properly documented into the accounting books. The third method is to reinvest the profits from your company. So this, of course, assumes that your company is already profitable. And finally, you can also seek funding from external sources, and these are like bank loans or potentially from investors. So this last approach is probably not so suitable for new startups and smaller companies that have not turned profitable. Now, the important thing to note here is that you always have to move money through your business bank account to keep things clean and trackable. And usually that involves having to hire an accountant to help keep track of every transaction. Now, this will save you a lot of time, stress, and help you to avoid costly mistakes. Now, if you're in the US, once you are profitable, you can elect the S-corp taxation on your LLC. So here is how it works. You pay yourself a reasonable salary, and anything extra is a distribution, which may be taxed at a lower rate because it's not subject to self-employment tax. But this adds a lot of complexity, and you need to run payroll, you need to file extra forms, and you need to get professional help on this. Now, I also have to point out that S-corp is not applicable to every country, so some countries do not require an S-corp. Now, these are the common mistakes to avoid. Number 1, you should avoid mixing personal and business money. Number 2, assuming that your LLC will actually provide you with automatic tax savings. Number 3, forgetting to file your state filings or annual reports. And number 4, picking a name that's already taken or potentially trademarked or copyrighted by someone else. And number 5, electing to be an S-corp before you're actually profitable. Again, this tends to apply more to the US. Not every country actually has an S-corp. So, are you still figuring out whether you need an LLC? Share your business ideas in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you want to compare LLCs to sole proprietorships or DBAs, you can check out my video, which I'll link right here.